Welcome to the stream, you guys! Hi, I'm Ailey from the Black Ribbon, and welcome to Yokai Sekai! I figured we didn't have that much spooky Halloween stuff, so I thought I'd bring you the spook. You're welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm dressed as a Hanya, which is a vengeful ghost of a jealous woman, which I think is perfectly appropriate for Halloween, and I'm wearing my new orange kimono with a black collar, and I'm dressed right over left as if I were dead. I thought that would be very, very appropriate. So welcome, welcome, welcome to everybody who's joining us tonight, and I will go ahead and start working on getting everything queued up here. I hope you guys have had a great time at Grammary so far. We've had a great time with all the panels. We've enjoyed watching them. It's been a lot of fun. I'm glad I startled some of you. I really wanted to. I hope you enjoyed that. The little spoop. I was really, really trying for that. Let me make sure I got my presenter notes ready to get jump scare, kind of. Little tiny one. Little tiny one. I've also got my Hanya mask. If you want a little extra spooky. So I actually used some of Dolphy's suggestions for my makeup today, so that was very great timing, very helpful. A++. I'm just queuing up this with my presenter's notes, just the only thing I need to see on the side here, because there's a lot. I didn't put as much information in the slides. I'm reading a lot of prompts instead. Okay, so I guess I'm ready to swap this over to my presentation. Oh, it's not full screen. Let's make that full screen. There we go. Welcome to Yokai Sekai. Yokai obviously doesn't actually mean ghosts. We're gonna get into that actually. We're gonna talk a lot about the words behind and the meaning behind all of these things that get translated loosely as ghost stories. It's very similar to how, you know, we say ghost stories, but sometimes there's like a monster involved and stuff like that. So we'll be going over kind of all of those different things today. So I'm very excited for this. And why are we talking about yokai during a J fashion event? Well, I think during Kawaii or Kolai, you guys got to see a lot of the latest releases that happen to have a lot of yokai involved. So it's really nice to be able to like understand what these prints are. We've got different examples, kind of different styles. We've got a gashadokoro kimono. We've got, it's called hyaki. I can't pronounce the whole thing. I'll have to look it up. One piece, and this is called timidite. I can't speak French. I'm sorry. I barely can Japanese. From Juliette Justine. So it's becoming more and more of a common motif in J fashion. So I thought it'd be really fun for you guys to have a better understanding of yokai, and so you can, like, understand the motifs on your dresses, especially during Halloween. It's perfect, right? There's a bunch of new prints that we just went over that have a lot of these themes on there that we'll talk about as well. So, well, like I said, yokai isn't really about ghosts necessarily. The exact characters mean kind of bewitching or attractive and mysterious. Those are the two characters that form the word yokai. And a lot of yokai are kind of explanations. Like they are made up explanations for the inexplicable. Is the best way I can describe what yokai really are. Yeah, that's somebody asked for a karakaso or a kasobake, which is this little guy, little homie here. He's actually one of my favorites too. So I actually already had him in this, and we'll talk about that type of yokai in a little bit here. But what yokai really are folklore explanations for the inexplicable. That's the best definition I can give you, and kind of like, but that's why it's really hard to translate this word because it's such a long explanation. Like you'll come up with stories about why you feel something creepy crawly on the back of your neck, and you want to have like what is that, why. You come up with a good story about it, and that is what yokai are. So another word for yokai is mononoke. It's a literal synonym, and it literally translates to a thing of mystery. Mono is the word for mysterious, and I'm sorry, the mo. I think it's the same word for I can't remember. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to forgive me on that one. Oh no, the K is the mysterious part. Sorry. Mono as in like kimono or tabemono if you speak Japanese at all. It literally means thing. So a thing of mystery. Literally, that's the words. Sorry. Yes, that is exactly a great example of coming up with your own yokai. So that's really fun to think about. Yokai are constantly being invented in Japan, even now. There's like, you hear somebody creepily moaning in the bathroom, like moaning Myrtle. She would be a perfect example of a yokai. Yes, the yokai that peels it's just like a little creature that nibbles your pleather at night while you're sleeping. That would be a perfect yokai. Someone should draw that up. At the end of this, I would love for you guys to get inspired to draw some Lolita specific yokai. That would be perfect. I'm excited that you guys are already coming up with your own, but that's exactly what yokai are. Good job, guys. Mamono is another, so ma is like maho, magic. Maho, mamono, a magical thing. So again, these are just words that they're coming up with. I love this. I love that you guys are coming up with the petticoat planning. What would that look like? Would it be like really like a big cat, like a big cat that just squishes your petticoats? A bakemono or obake, that's often translated as monster, or even like a kind of like a ghost. Sometimes I've seen that translated as. It literally means something that's been transformed, and a lot of yokai are things that through either usage or through their own spirits slowly over time can gain the ability to transform into something. And that an example of that would be like a kitsune over time, over like 100 years, it slowly gains enough power to become and transform into a nine-tailed kitsune. Or a bakeneko, which is another one somebody asked me to talk about, is a transformed cat. The older cats get, the more power they obtain, and they will get two tails, and they will become powerful. And sometimes they can be malicious, and sometimes they're not. So, yeah. The longer things exist, the more power they have. So that's really important in this concept of yokai. And another one is tsukumo game. We talked about how things can gain power over time, and a lot of it is like if you put work into something, like an item, and like the longer you own something, you're giving it power somehow. That's just like a part of like culturally in Japan. So the whole concept, I think is really fun. Most recently with what's her name? Marie Kondo, where you thank something before getting rid of it, actually has to do a little bit with yokai. It has to do with the fact that if you don't graciously get rid of something and let the spirit that is in the thing that you own know that you are grateful to it before you get rid of it, it might come back to haunt you. And that is maybe where the kasabake, the our one-eyed friend up here, comes from. There's no specific stories or like tales with this guy in it. I've looked around for them. There's not very many. But he is what is known as a tsukemogame, which is an item that's like a tool that gets transformed because somebody neglected it or somebody discarded it carelessly. So be careful with what you get rid of and how you get rid of it. Make sure you are grateful to the things you use every day and you don't just toss them aside and put your clothes on the floor. That's where this comes from. And a lot of these stories are kind of like, you know, fairy tales and mother's tales to kind of like encourage good behavior. And yes, you know, don't toss your clothes on the floor or they might become haunted and strangle you in the night. Things like that. You know, perfectly creepy ghost stories to scare children into doing the right thing. A lot of these have some of that vibe to them, so it's really fun. Another thing that is often related to yokai is an oni, which is sometimes translated as an ogre. I'm dressed as what could be considered an oni today, which is the hanya, but again, we said this is the spirit of a vengeful, jealous woman, so it can be a bad spirit as well. And then Ayakashi are specifically yokai that are around water. There's a whole bunch of them, including mermaid types, the kappa, which we'll talk about later. Things of that nature. It's just a specific word for a specific type of yokai, and there's a whole bunch. We're not going to necessarily cover all of them, but if you come across that word, that's what it means. And the really important thing that keeps coming back a lot is the Hyakiyagyo, which is the thing I couldn't remember all of at once, which is the Night Parade of 100 Demons, which is both a recurring theme and a story. It's kind of like, you know, then 1,000 demons came and took somebody away. Like, it's just the word you use where like a lot of monsters showed up and scare people. So, this will be very important. I will tell like one or two stories that relate to that in a little bit here. So I will skip to the next slide. And of course, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. I am reading the chat as we go along here. So like I was talking about with how there's kind of a spirit in a lot of things. It's a concept of animism, and it comes from Shintoism, which was the native religion to Japan. It's a belief that, you know, like objects or places or creatures and things all possess a spiritual essence, and it can grow with time and it can become vengeful. It can also become good. Not all yokai are necessarily bad. There are a lot of them are mostly neutral actually, and are often mischievous. And they're, like I said, used just to tell and explain things that are inexplicable. Be it like a, you know, whirlwind, you know, a tornado and stuff like that. Sometimes those are described by yokai because they don't have, you know, before they had a more scientific understanding of the way things are. Kami, which is often translated into English as God, but it's more the word spirit, and a lot of the spirits can be both good or bad. So, yeah, Totoro is a great example of a Shinto kami. So yokai stories are similar to fairy tales, like I said, in Western culture. They are often they're told as a warning to an audience or to teach a lesson. And I talked about how Marie Kondo would tell you to say thank you to something before you get rid of it. Many yokai come from disgruntled spirits. And a lot of the times you'll see people thanking things a lot in Japan. It's very, very, very common. One of my favorite yokai, which is this guy down here, he's great. He's the yokai of, you're trying to get home late at night and you keep seeming to get lost or you're stumbling around and you just can't seem to find your way home no matter how hard you try. Well, you have just encountered a Nurikabe, which is this adorable dude, which is called a plaster wall. He's the yokai that is said to impede travelers at night. Realistically, you're tired and you're making mistakes, but it's much more fun to imagine there's a giant three-eyed white dog wall ruining your day, essentially. He is great. And then, again, yokai are often people or creatures that are transformed through a significant event, whether it's 100 years, or, sometimes, again, you can throw something away. You gotta be careful when you throw your stuff away. You gotta be very careful. And maybe that's why in Japan things are, there's not a lot of trash that's, like, just tossed on the ground. It's very, like, make sure you sort it, all that stuff. It's really fun how, like, you start to read this stuff and you start to see how this has affected the culture. It's kind of interesting. Oh, I almost missed this one. The 100 is often, like I told you about the 100-year kitsune is very important, and the 100 night demons is very important. 100 is a very common number, but there was a thing that they used to do, which is called hyaku monogatari, which just means, like, it's translated as ghost stories, but it literally means 100 tales. And this is actually a courtly pastime people would do. They would go into a room with a bunch of candles, and they would sit around and tell spooky stories to one another. And after everybody told one story, they would put a candle out. And they would keep doing it until everyone had gone around and all the candles were extinguished. And then they would wait to see if, like, a real ghost would come out. Boop, boop. And this is how they would, like, write down all these tales. And there's, like, a whole branch of study about a yokai, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So it's just like folklore tales, folk stories in, Western culture. There are people who study them too. But yeah, this is a very common pastime, especially like in the Edo period, that people would do for funsies to try and get a spook to come out of them. So you might see some of that relived in a lot of anime from time to time, where, like, they'll all be, like, with flashlights, and then someone will put the flashlight out, and then they'll all get scared. Somebody will, jump out at them and scare them. So it is still a trope to have this kind of, like, ghost telling, ghost storytelling. It's very similar to Are You Afraid of the Dark kind of stuff. So and it was, like, a test of bravery, but it also was a courtly pastime. So I'm going to talk next about a few of the more popular themes, like I was telling you about earlier. This is the Hyakiyagyo, the night parade of the 100 demons. This parade appears in many stories, and one of the most famous occurrences is recorded in the Tsukumogami Chronicle, which is, again, the Tool Spirit Chronicle. And according to this legend, during the Koho period, there was a massive cleaning of Kyoto. So someone Marie Kondoed all of Kyoto out. But they didn't think their tools, and they threw them all away into one area, like one midden, which is a trash heap. And all of the old tools that were thrown away were pissed. And they all transformed into yokai at once. And they all paraded through the night in the Hyakiyagyo. And to this day, there is a parade held in Kyoto, which is known in an area that's called Yokai Street, which is a shopping district with lots of yokai-themed shops. They also do a Halloween parade, and if you want to enter, I've got all the information at the end of the slides here on when that is, how to enter. They're not doing it this year, obviously, because of this time of Rona, but you, too, could be in the 100 and night parade of demons. It would be fun to be a spooky. I would be great right now. I'm perfectly ready to go. There are other stories about how this parade will pass you at night and scare the life out of you. That is, it is used as a boogeyman very frequently. There's another famous tale of a monk who went to a temple, and he thought it was occupied, but it was, you know, there was nobody there, it was abandoned, but because he was praying there very, very hard when this parade came by, the spirit of the temple protected him, and he lived. But it is so terrifying it might kill you at sight. So it is used as a boogeyman story to keep you from being out late at night when you shouldn't be. But this one's, again, one of the most common themes that you're going to find repeated in current fashion. We saw here. It is Kyoto. I was wrong. No, I think there's some stuff in Shibuya as well. There's definitely Halloween stuff in Shibuya. I don't know that they do a yokai thing, so I don't know about that. But I do know that there is a lot of Halloween specials. I happened to be there on Halloween one year, and it was real cray-cray. I wasn't ready for that. So these are some dresses. I'm gonna maybe move my head here a little bit because I'm over that, and I'll just be over here for a minute. These are all examples of people's interpretations of the, you know, the night parade of 100 demons. So they are all over the place. There's lots of them. Most of the ones that you guys probably saw during the Area Kei probably were about this as well. This is always one of the biggest ones. So keep your eye out for it, and you'll know that it might be the one about the tools, or it might be just, you know, one that comes out at night to scare the living daylights out of everyone. So it is a very, very common theme. And then next up, I'm going to move myself, well, I guess, yeah, back to my corner. Back to my corner, where I belong. Everybody knows the kitsune, right? I would think a lot of people do. We're going to talk a little bit about the kitsune, which is the literal word for fox in Japanese. Yeah, if there were, so in order for them to transform, the big thing about kitsune is that they can transform into the shape of any human. They have to have a leaf on their head. I don't know why, but this is a part of what they do. So, foxes can be zenko, which literally means good foxes, or they can be yako, which means bad foxes, or field. Well, it literally means field foxes, but they are mischievous or malicious. So, zenko, which are the good foxes, as we talked about, are deeply associated with the Shinto deity Inari, which is the god of rice. So very important, obviously, in Japan, is the god of rice. And the deity is so intertwined and associated with the fox. Inari is often depicted as a white fox, and there are Shinto shrines to Inari that just feature foxes, fox statues all the time. And the foxes are white usually. And the foxes are said to be fond of fried tofu, which is abura age. That's why you'll see dishes named kitsune, like kitsune udon. It has a piece of fried tofu in the udon. Inari zushi, which is, again, Inari is associated with foxes, is a rice wrapped in that fried tofu skin. So that's why the association with that. So some of my favorite foods, those are very delicious. I love abura age. I could eat some right now, just thinking about it. So they do have good taste. They know what they're talking about. Man, I'm hungry too, bro. I had that pizza, but now I'm like, man, I could use more. Foxes, again, like I said, are said to be able to transform. They often transform to the shape of beautiful women. Now, it's not necessarily for malicious purposes. Sometimes they can be faithful lovers in the shape of a fox. And they say one of the only ways you can tell if a woman is a fox is her shadow is often still a fox. And she has maybe slanted fox-like eyes. So that's one way to tell. Which is really annoying with the whole fox eye trend. I don't know if you've seen that going on with makeup. People have been like, they'll do the, you know, makeup and it's really beautiful, but then they'll like pull their eyes back and I'm like, troublesome, problematic, but I'm sure you've heard about this. Yes, fuck the fox eye trend. But this is where it comes from, is that if the woman has like slanted eyes or fox-like eyes, we would call it probably like cat-like eyes in Western culture, but it's considered very beautiful, but she might be a kitsune. Yes, it is. We've talked about that Um, what is really actually an interesting thing, though, I don't know if you've ever heard of a cultural balance syndrome. Some people believe that they are possessed by foxes, and like really truly actually believe it because it is culturally something that is a tale that's been told, but because they're having a mental crisis, they think that it has happened to them, and they really truly believe it, and they will only eat the foods that supposedly foxes like sweets and inari sushi. Um, and they have to be, treated to disbelieve that they have turned into foxes. There's a similar cultural syndrome. It's definitely not furries. Let's not talk like it's an actual mental health problem. It's not furries. There's a similar thing with cultural lycanthropy. It's called clinical lycanthropy. Yeah, people who think they're Jesus. It is an actual clinical problem, but it doesn't exist anywhere else because culturally it's not a thing that people would think of because they've never heard of it here. But it's something's gone around. But that's an interesting aside about kitsunes. There is a weird mental problem where they truly, really believe that they are possessed by a kitsune. Obviously, they've just lost their mind, but think it's interesting that it is associated with this. And then I've got a few kitsune dresses that I found. And again, I have to move my head here. Whoop, whoop. These guys are really, really pretty. They mostly have the masks. They don't actually have kitsune. This one over here does. The one on this way. This one does. Has actual kitsune on it, but the rest just have the mask. I have face mask with kitsune on it. Again, associated with Inari, and it's also a little bit like associated with a trickster situation there. And then the next one, some other favorite yokai. So when I was asking about earlier in the chat, I was like, what are some of your favorite stories? And what are some of your favorite ones? Somebody asked me about toilet yokai. Okay, a lot of the toilet yokai happen to be kappa. And I know a lot of people think kappa are cute, little turtle dudes, but that's definitely not how they started. So we're going to talk about them real quick. It's amazing. Kappa are described as like maybe looking a little bit like a turtle, but also they can be hairy, and they have a dent or a dish spot on their head that has water in it. Yeah, these guys are great. They are known for being a water yokai, and they are known for drowning people. You'll see them actually. People use them as signs for like, beware, this place will danger, water will drown you area. So they are known for drowning people. They are said to haunt bathrooms, and they are said to enjoy touching human butts. Because they're in search of the Shirikodama, which literally translates to butt ball, and I'll get to that in a second. Touch the butt. There was a great story that I read about some poor maid went out to the bathroom late at night, and she felt something touch her butt, and she ran back to the house, and a doctor ran out like to the bathroom and like grabbed the arm and cut it off, and it turned out to be a kappa, and he came back for his arm. Crazy story. But what is the butt ball? What is that about? So apparently when you drown and your body is found later, your sphincter is no longer tight, okay? So it's loose. And the story is they couldn't figure out what was up with that, so they were like, there must have been a ball in there that something took out. Which would be a kappa, because they drown people, of course. So literally, a kappa came for your butt ball. That's what that is from. And I was trying to explain why I thought this, like, why are there so many toilet stories? Was a question that somebody asked also. Gentle butt stroking. So I don't know if you've ever been to Japan, especially out in the rural areas. They have squatty potties where you have to like have your whole butt hanging over a toilet. And I don't know if you've ever experienced that in your life yet. Because if you have, you will know that's a real vulnerable position to find yourself in, even for a few seconds. It just feels really weird and really wrong and really vulnerable. Your butt is just out there. Yeah, school bathrooms are the same. I went to a thing in a school. And I went to a national park, and they had a squatty potty bathroom, but it was a little bit more open air with like kind of a gap in the top of the stalls to let the air come through. It was a bit breezy, and let me tell you, with my butt hanging out there, about to go to the bathroom, and the breeze came by and gently touched my butt, I have been visited by the kappa. So I get where the story comes from. Like, I actually legitimately get it. I understand when your butt is out there and you can't look back there because you're like squatting down and it's real awkward. You might feel like something touched your butt. I get it. I actually get it. So that's a pretty damn good one. And then somebody else asked me to like look into the kamaitachi, which is a sickle-footed weasel in a whirlwind, which I thought was fantastic. Yes. So, I forgot, let me get back to the kappa real quick. There's a couple ways to appease them. They aren't all bad, necessarily. They also have knowledge, so that the doctor that went out there and gave back the kappa's arm, he learned from the kappa how to set bones properly after the arm was grabbed. So apparently they love cucumbers. If you bow at them, they'll bow back because they're very polite, much like the fae. And they have that dish of water on top of their head we talked about earlier. If the water spills out of their little head of bowl situation, they can't move or something until you refill it. And if you refill it, you've done them a favor, so they owe you. Again, fairy rules, if you're used to fairy rules. And then also, you can scare them away by farting at them. I had a really great ukiyo-e that I didn't include in this panel because it's fairly graphic, of some dude farting in the general direction of a kappa. So I guess be ready to like have one on board in case you feel like your butt got stroked while you're on the squatty potty. Just be ready. Yeah. So those are kappa are great. There's so many stories involved with kappa. There was just a ton. I'm sure I could find more. It could go on for hours. I think kappa are one of the most mischievous and ridiculous. Yeah, fart humor was very popular. It's true with Edo artists. And there's a lot. The other thing is like this culture has been around forever, and it's not like really for kids. Obviously, these are like serious stories that people tell. They have all these beautiful, beautiful folios of art for all of these different spookies. I didn't include a ton of them because we were mostly talking about it from a J fashion perspective, of like modern prints or people using specific prints for their dresses. But there is just a million billion beautiful prints of really crazy looking things out there, including the sickle-footed whirlwind weasel guy. So, yeah, this one's another one that's just probably invented for a freak occurrence where like a sudden whirlwind rushes by you and then you get cut by the debris in the wind, or when you like get cut by something really really sharp and you don't feel it. That wound was given to you by this little weird fucking sickle-footed weasel, which is a ridiculous thing to think about. It just takes a lot of imagination, so I am really looking forward to what your guys' interpretations of Lolita Yokai are going to be. I'm very excited to see your creativity already. Yes, I'm very excited about this. I have like this book that I read, and I didn't really. Oh, I missed the part about the Yokai studies. I don't know where I had that in a slide. Where did it go? I must have. Oh, I did. I missed it in this one. My bad. So there was a guy named Inoue Enryo who was nicknamed the Professor of Yokai, and he invented Yokai Gaku, which is Yokai studies, which gets translated as like the study of mysteries, which is not inaccurate, but I think leaves out the bigger picture of what yokai are. And he broke them down and did like several treatises on yokai, and his books are very wordy. I looked at a couple. They aren't translated as far as I could tell. They are very, very wordy. And he tries to like categorize, like he really was serious about studying these. And he tried to translate them into like, or like categorize them into like true mysteries and things that can be explained by science essentially, but like were stories. So to him, there are real, true, mysterious yokai out there, and I think it's really fun that he gotten nicknamed Professor Yokai, and he's very serious about yokai stuff. He's not joking. He's not playing. And I wanted to see if he had any like books that were translated for this panel, but they are not, and they are very dry, unfortunately. But I think it's really interesting that he did start a whole, essentially like a college course, college section of study that is demonology, essentially, for lack of a better description. But again, it's folklore studies, realistically, and that's a very valid course of study. But again, coming at it with a more of a, not like the history of stories, but more like understanding where these come from a mystery standpoint. And I think it's really, really weird and interesting, and I love it. I think it's great culturally that it's like that. So yeah, so let me get to my book that I bought for this, which I thought was very interesting. This is called the Book of Yokai. That's your Isbin up there. And that is a link to the Kyoto Yokai Street and the flea market and the parade. All that information is on that website. And this book was really helpful for me. It does have like a section that's kind of like a bestiary, for lack of a better word, of creepy crawlies and stories associated with said creepy crawlies and what Hyaku Monogatari they came from. Because like I said, people would write down all these 100 ghost tale stories as a pastime. People would do that. It's a good book. This guy is a folklorist himself, which I think is, a valid way to study this stuff, for sure. And there was a couple other books I looked at. They were a little drier. This one's kind of funny. It's got some good jokes in it. So I highly recommend this particular book if you want to get a little further into yokai. And I am here to answer questions for you now. And I hope you had a good time going over the butt stories, because looking that stuff up was some of the most fun I had in prepping for this myself. And I know this is a much shorter panel than maybe some of the other ones, but I just mostly wanted to get the concept of what yokai are across, and I think you guys really picked it up right away with coming up with the Lolita yokai, so I'm glad you started to have fun with that, and I truly can't wait to see your guys' depiction of what the petticoat defluffing yokai looks like. I'm really excited about it. So, yeah, if you guys have questions, speak now. Also, feel free to tell me how you feel about grammar in general. I am the chair of the Area Kei, and if there's any questions you have about any of the panels or any of the programming, I'm here for that too. So, I'm going to let you guys meditate on that for a second. Thank you guys so much. We've had a great time preparing everything for you this weekend. Oh yes, and please do the panel feedback. We definitely want to know what you thought of everything you watched today. I don't know if you need to get up in my creepy face again. Thanks everybody for tuning in on Friday night so late. I know it's late, and I know there's early panels tomorrow that maybe are a little bit, more what you were hoping for. But I did want to make sure we had one spooky tales from, for this weekend. Worth. Oh, thank you again. I mostly was like watching her thing, and I looked at some kabuki, and I looked at some Hanya makeup. Ooh, a feral umbrella tail. Let's see if there's any Casablanca stories in here. That's the nice thing about this. Like I said, there's a bestiary in here, so I can see if there's any Casa Obake stories. 229. Let us see. There's a really good picture of him. Looks pretty great. I'm enjoying him. Let's see. Kasabake. There's no known narratives or folk beliefs associated specifically with the Kasabake, or Karakasa. But he becomes a staple of yokai iconography, appearing in everything from Edo period games to contemporary live-action films and anime. Mostly just, it's a Tsuke Mogame like we talked about. But yeah, there's no specific stories, unfortunately. Oh yeah, the one I told you the story of the one-eyed ball butthole dude. I told you there's not a complicated story here. The story is once upon a time, late at night, there was a samurai walking home by himself. And he heard a noise behind him. And he turned around. And he saw a guy standing there. And he looked at him. And the guy turned around, pulled down his pants. I guess he probably wasn't wearing pants, but he pulled up his kimono and spread his cheeks, and there was an eyeball gazing at him. And the samurai was like, yo, what the fuck? And tried to run away. And the asshole dude somehow chased him backwards, eyeball first. There you go. That is the story. Yokai, what the fuck? Again, it's just one of those don't be out late at night by yourself stories, but... Yeah, he doesn't even do anything, he just chases you, but eyeball first. Yeah, I don't really know what that would look like. I'm just trying to imagine what that would even like. What does that look? How does that go? How does that look? Anyways, it's a great. I don't think I need to recreate that. I think like so. Goatsy is obviously that yokai in digital format. Chases you no matter where you go. Pops up where you don't expect or want to see it. maybe, perhaps. I mean, cryptids are cool. I don't necessarily believe in any of them, but I think they're cool and they're really fun to talk about and like where they come from culturally. Again, like these ones, a lot of them are just explanations really inexplicable. Like, you know, you hear a bump in the night. What was that? Well, it was the spirit of the pencil I broke last week. So, you know. Yeah, exactly. I was late because I was chased by a butthole eyeball man. What? I mean, in the case of yokai, it is very paranormal. There's a lot of things that do fall into the paranormal. There's not necessarily ghosts in terms of like people's specific spirits, although there are a few. The majority actually really aren't. They are the spirit of the item that has come to life and transformed. So yeah, in this particular case, the crossover is great, where that is not necessarily the case in true cryptozoology. In other cultures, it doesn't make sense to cross those paths, but it definitely makes sense in this particular culture to cross those paths because it's a lot of transformation because of like either spirits or use. So yeah, I totally understand why that could be frustrating if you're specifically talking about cryptozoology in a Western standpoint, but it does make sense in this case. Beto Beto-san. I'm going to get my book out and see if Beto Beto-san is in here. Maybe. No, it doesn't look like it. I just got Baki Neko. What is Babu? Uh-huh. I like that Hello Kitty actually is in here, by the way. Should we see what this book has to say about Hello Kitty? I was curious. I just saw it and was like, I gotta go. I don't have time for this. Where was that? I saw that written in here and I was like, why? Oh, here we go. Hello Kitty, page 93. Let's see. Where is it? Oh, okay. They're talking about Tanuki, which is real animal, but also like, you know, like the Tanuki's similar to Kitsune in terms of they are associated with yokai stories, but they are real animals. They're specifically talking about how Karopi, I think, might be a kappa. So there's like just, you know, commercialization and cute kawaiifying of creepy crawlies, which is pretty common. So, thick snake. Oh, Beto Beto. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Beto Beto-san. That's fun. I just love it. That's great. After you, Beto Beto-san. Yes, a lot of these are just like, don't be out late at night. You never know what you'll find. I love it. I love all of them. This is fun. And then there's another one that, like, my mom, so I'm, again, half Japanese, and my mom, growing up, would say, bachiatata, which is like, it means, yes, you've been punished, and it's supposed to be divine punishment, but the way she would describe it is that there, would be, like, if you did something bad, like, I picked on my brother or whatever, and I then immediately turned around and like bonked my head on an open door or something. My mom would say bachi. And she would say it as if there was a creature that was causing these paybacks to me. Like, that was, you know, punishing me for being bad to my brother and stuff. And it wasn't like divine retribution. So it was that there was like a little sprite. She would say it was an oni. She'd say it would be a little oni that was following me around, and she said it saw you do bad things to your brother, and so you have been punished. So I know a lot of people translate bachi as divine punishment, but from what my mother said, the way she taught it to me was it's much more like it was a yokai that follows you around. It sees you do bad shit and it'll punish you. It's essentially a type of form of karma. So don't be bad. But again, a lot of these are like old wives' tales told to bad children to get them to behave. Oh, there's tons of vengeful women and there's tons of vengeful men as well. All the time. All of these things. So. Yeah, that would be great. Maybe he needs one. Like, how do we get that to happen? That would be fantastic. But anyways, if you guys have any more questions about different yokai, yes, vengeance is timeless, fashionable, and unusual. I do enjoy pretending to be a vengeful ghost for Halloween. I very much had a good time romping around the house, being as spooky as possible for the last hour during Kawaii or Kawaii, and just creeping out my roommates as best I could. I'm a little sad I can't go out dressed like this. I would have to at least wear this with a piece of cloth in here. I'm probably going to like drill some holes in this and attach it to one of my face masks for tomorrow, so I can go out like this and just do my eye makeup maybe. Oh, well, that's a really good question, actually. I do love that. And hello, Doug Raymond. How you doing? That's a good question. So, the concept, so Poltergeist, I think, is a great example of how things can be haunted, like the teacup and tea kettle. It's a tsukimogame, as we talked about it earlier. That is a great example of a yokai. Chandelure and Litwick are great examples as well. Trubbish could be one, honestly. He's an animal, but he's not considered a ghost type, for whatever that's worth. But Trubbish is very, very yokai-esque for sure. God, Chimcheo or Chimcho might be one. For example, he's very. I mean, Ghastly's kind of ghostly, but I wouldn't say he's based on a yokai. You know. There's a lot of them that are Tsukumogame who are like transformed tools. There's a lot of those. There's that one electric type that's like sometimes it's a fucking washing machine and it's other things. Oh, Drowsy specifically is a taper ghost thing that I had to look up once because I had no idea what the hell he was supposed to be. He is a dream eater, actually. I'm gonna find out the name of him because I can't remember the name of this. It's a dream eating taper. And it's so good to see you in this chat. Oh, his name is Baku. And it will devour your nightmares. And I think that is a thing that is said about Drowsy that just didn't translate into like the Western very well. And I was like, I don't understand. Why does he eat dreams? Doesn't make any sense. It is actually a mythical creature that really is based off a taper, and that's why he looks the way he does, called Baku. So if you want to look up Baku mythology, you can read all about him. So he's more of a mythological being than I would say necessarily a yokai, but that is a great one. That is an excellent, excellent one. There was recently a Lolita dress with Baku on it, actually. And I was like, what the hell is this dream-eating taper nonsense? I didn't know what the hell it was about. That was really great. Drifloon is definitely one for sure. There is a Kitsune one, which is Ninetales. That's a good one. Yamask is great. Trying to think. There are so many that are great examples of yokai, for sure. So, yeah, I can't think of any more off the top of my head, though, but... Oh, that would be a, Yuki-onna, which is a type of ghost story yokai, with much more of a actual ghost story, but yeah, Yuki-onna, that is definitely a yokai type folklore, for sure. A little of both, I would say. I could look at my book what it has to say, but you can definitely look it up on Wikipedia as well. It's always a beautiful woman who just, freezes your butt to death. It's just like, guys, maybe if you weren't so damn horny, following women out into the cold, you wouldn't freeze your dicks off. That's not, again, it's a lot of those stories. It's a lot of guys. It's mostly like old, single men running out into the woods with a beautiful woman. Just don't do it. Maybe just don't go out there. It's a bad idea. Yeah, there's multiple Yuki-onna stories. There's a lot of them, but there are several that are like old guys going chasing after snow women and freezing to death. That's a very common one. So it's good life advice. Don't do it. But yeah, there's a lot of tales with Yuki-onna. That's a large category. That's not a simple one to define. But yeah, don't go running out into the wind. Any other ones we're like any questions we want to ask? I'll see if there's any like good short stories about Yuki-onna that I could read for you, since this is such a great book. Ooh, it's a lot of pages. 173, 165. Slitmouth Woman is spooky, and she's fairly new, actually. because she's associated mostly with face masks. And she'll ask you like, "Am I pretty?" And you can't see her under under her mask, and then she takes off the mask and she's slit mouth. So she's actually a fairly modern yokai. So that one's actually pretty interesting. Like I said, they are still currently and constantly being invented. I'm just seeing. So there's a lot of like local stories to do with Yuki Onna, and then specifically like some tales say that she is a moon goddess that's been kicked out of the celestial realm and like has to live on Earth. It depends. There is a more modern version of her that is specifically the one that asks, "Am I pretty?" and she's wearing a face mask. There are older ones too. So that one's like 50-50. There are more, but that is one of the more modern ones that I've read about. I'm trying to find where I saw that. It's Kuchisaki. Let me see. Let me find this. Kuchisaki. I swear to God. It just was there and then it was gone. Nope. Where'd it go? I'm gonna have to look it up. Kuchisaki. 222. Yep, she was invented in 1978, specifically. So yeah, there you go. That's why that was a pretty modern one. There you go. Congratulations. It's true, but this one specifically, you weren't here for this earlier, Doug, but this book has a index and a section that is like a bestiary or a like a bestiary section that is just specifically so you can look up the names of very specific yokai. It's not just like an index; it's like a section just on where to find the specific yokai you're looking for. But there is a separate section that is an index. But there you go. But yeah, that one was very specifically created in 1978 because of face masks. So like I said, that was a very, very specific one. There are similar ones from earlier that are like earlier, but they are not the same. Specifically, the slit mouth woman was invented in 1978. So there you go. Any other questions that I could talk about with you guys, or any other specific yokai? I'm always here for it. And I appreciate the Pokemon question, because yokai are very important in modern Japanese culture, as we talked about earlier. Alright. Yeah, there's some yokai you can't escape, sometimes you can. The giant skeleton one, that was on the one dress, or the one kimono from the beginning. Let me pull that back up if I can. Just slide, two? Here we go. The giant skeleton over here. You can escape that one if you hear it's invisible. It can be invisible and it just wants to bite your head off and drink your blood, apparently. You can escape it because you'll hear like a loud ringing noise out of nowhere in your ears. So essentially, if you get like random tinnitus suddenly, beware, the giant 12-foot skelly might be after you, about to bite your head off. Yeah, essentially the Home Depot skeleton might be coming for your body, just to bite your head off and then drink your blood. Like you're like a soda can, just like tear it off and then gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. I don't know. I didn't come up with it. But that was one of the stories that I read. It's either like the manifestation of an army, or people who starved is another one that I've heard. So like that's why it's always so hungry. So, you know, beware the tinnitus. It might mean there's a 12-foot skelly haunting your ass who wants to eat you. Specifically wants to drink your blood. Alright, guys. If you don't have any more questions, I'm gonna call it a night because it's almost 1 a.m. and I've had a great time with you. And I'm sure you guys need to go to bed. Exactly. It grows with blood. And it's been a lot of fun spending some time with you tonight. Go out there and catch some ghosty type Pokemon if you still playing Pogo. And am I doing the Marowak event? That's a good question. I have a shiny Alolan Marowak. These are important life questions we're asking right now. I will figure that out and I will DM you, sir. It's a good question and I will get to it. Hope you don't have too many spooky stories. They didn't scare you too much, but I really am looking forward. So please, in the panel section of our Discord, if you're in there, please tell me about your Lolita Yokai. I'm really looking forward to that. I've loved all of your ideas so far, and I cannot wait. Like the Yokai that makes your print bleed. Can't wait to hear about it. So thank you so much, and we'll see you tomorrow really but early. And I'll be in a lot of the chats moderating, so if you need to at me for anything, I'm Retro Game Chan, and I will be lurking around a lot tomorrow. So thank you guys so much. Please fill out the feedback form. I've had a great night, and I hope you have had too. Good night, guys.